So, good morning.
Good morning.
We had a lovely talk before we decided to record, and I wonder if you'd be good enough to put up that card that we talked about, and we can just open up with a little discussion there. We think it's a pretty juicy proposition of 16 or 18 words, whatever it is. So maybe let's have a look at that and then go from there.
There we
Thank
go.
you. So, one's infinite aware self-nature knows the isness of being. The finite body-mind knows the suchness of human experience. This assemblage of wording into something that at first might seem vague, but when one kind of looks at it closer and reflects a little deeper, there seems to be a moment in which the fog may lift in terms of understanding that awareness is the, I'll say, domain of isness. And again, I'm just wording the impossible. So awareness is the isness, and the human experience that we're having, we could call the suchness of being. So we have the isness of being, which is awareness, and the suchness of being, which is awareness. It's all one thing.
Yes, but the body-mind experiences suchness as this tactile, some so-called material world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's its suchness, the fact that we have these sense gates that allow us to interact with awareness as awareness. And I think that's a miracle, actually, that can happen, that happens. That we do have these sense gates, we can touch, and we can smell, we can hear and see and think. Because oftentimes there's a tone of as if the body mind is to be demeaned or is to be looked down on or something that doesn't matter. That sometimes creeps into the tone of discussions like this. Oh, it's just the body mind. No, the body mind is part of the non-dual reality.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually awareness appearing as a body mind with apparent limitations. But in fact, it's all unbound and undivided and infinite, all of it. So we get to benefit from both aspects. The body mind can understand that there's an isness of being, can kind of intuit that, but on its level, it can understand the very suchness of living, of having this life, and that's a miracle.
Yes, you could say that awareness, having no qualities, in a certain way, again, trying to word something, cannot know suchness. That is, things that come and go in the suchness of our human experience. Awareness is untouched by that, as if it were like a a separate, it isn't, but as if it were a mirror for that simply accurately reflects everything that comes and goes without comment, without any disturbance in the mirror itself. We enter into paradox pretty quickly if we stumble far enough in trying to word and articulate and even intellectually think about reality. It's not it's not accessible by the conceptual mind, but as you said earlier, we can intuit. There is something which I'll also call awareness in our, which is blended into the human experience. It's not separate. It's there too. In other words, if there was no awareness, there would be no experience. I sometimes say if there was no subject, which we'll say awareness as a subject, there could be no object. That being said, it as a parsing point, it can be helpful to recognize that the subject awareness exists with or without an object in it. It's still there. One can recognize that directly in deep sleep, for instance. I don't always get that recognition at night when I'm sleeping, but there can be occasions in which there is a direct recognition that there's no object in awareness in deep sleep. In fact, probably it's there a lot more. It's just so subtle. And without an object in it, there's just such a abiding peace.
Yes,
That
it's hard for the body mind to conceive of a non-experience.
impossible too.
Yeah, it's impossible. And yet, at least in my case, in the awakening, there was that. There was no universe and no Philo,
Yeah.
and yet there was still the isness, and it was so flummoxing to come back, and it was like deep sleep, except the isness was very clearly there. But
Yes.
there wasn't any phenomena, there wasn't any experience of anything because it was just pure isness. And that's mind blowing for the mind. I mean, my mind was blown.
Literally. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but not forever. The mind comes back and reconstitutes itself, and it has a something in the body mind. Something is felt there, and I think it relates to the suchness. That the suchness and the isness are one, but the body mind experiences it differently. Is the only way I can say about it. It's a different experience, but it's very, very direct, and it's everywhere throughout the body, knows, but can't articulate it.
Mm.
And that takes away the fear of death and dissolution, because now it's known that that's not what happens. This body mind dissolves or dissilates, or whatever that word is. It evaporates and becomes something else. It doesn't actually disappear. It just returns to awareness. And then the awareness is always awareness, or being is always being. So we come to paradoxes, and for me now, paradoxes are good. I like paradox.
Oh, I love paradox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like gateways.
Yeah.
The mind can't go through the gateway, but something can.
Yeah. 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 Paradox is a well, let's say I mean we're just talking about it, but I'll say that awareness has no paradox. Um, there's just I'll say clarity, to use a word, but all it knows is itself, awareness of awareness. And that may sound like duality because we're using words and we got enough in there and it sounds like two separate things, but that's just the way the words seem to create a dual knowing, which is not in fact the case. And I encounter on Facebook and whatever a lot of sometimes thinking, if you will, that there's a real duality. Because words seem to create duality, and belief seems to create duality. There is, it's all one. There's only one thing going on. And the mind labels and depends upon a kind of knowing to reduce its own insecurities, basically. So we live in the known, we move from the known to the known in a search that's ongoing. I don't know the word is search, but in a need for some kind of security that seems to come from knowing. There's a lovely song, Looking for Something I Can Believe In.
Mm.
That sort of nails it for me.
Yes, it's because duality arises as conflict or manifests as conflict is why humans suffer so much. They suffer because the duality built into the concept of duality is conflict. And and that just seems to be part of the human condition. It's part of the non-dual reality. It's just showing up in this way. And it's just something that we have to deal with as human beings. It seems like humans have this condition and it creates conflict. And if we're wise, we can try to understand the reasons behind that and maybe come to a bigger picture as humans so that we can begin to accept that yes, suffering and conflict is part of it in some way. One of the ways that I see it, one of the ways that I see it resolving is in fact that without the conflict of the past, we would not have the world we have today. Everything would change. And one way to see that is to just think of our parents, and if we had parents in the war, and if our parents met because of the war. So if there wasn't a war, they might not have met, and we might not have been born. And so there are all of these arisings that depend on each other to create this, and you cannot disallow any of the things that happened in the past in order for this to be here. To disallow anything in the past would be to deny this, and that doesn't make any sense. So we have to accept war, conflict, hatred, all of these negative things are part of the picture. And this moment of peace that we have now is not separate from all of those moments of war and negativity and hatred. They're part of it. To me, that's staying with non-duality. If we believe that non-duality, or if we understand that the non-dual reality is the reality, then we have to accept all of its aspects. We can't put one thing over there and say, no, that's wrong. Because then we've taken it and made the duality out of it.
Mm-hmm. It's the suchness.
Yeah.
Of human experience, huh?
Yes.
We were going to talk about at one point awareness, and you had used some lovely phrasing regarding being that I thought opened some new vistas in my own mind, and perhaps you could share that with us.
Yes, it's just the idea that awareness is being and being is awareness. And some people latch onto the word awareness and they want to challenge it by saying, well, I don't know if I'm aware. And I can kind of see the logic behind it. So I like to talk of it as being. And I define being as just existence. And for there to be existence, there has to be awareness of that existence. Otherwise, how would you know? Right? And no one, very few people will deny their existence. They might deny that they're aware. They might try and be clever and say, no, there's just this, right? But they won't deny that they exist. Very few. And if the few that do deny that, they're candidates for the loony bin and will end up there in old age if they're not careful. Because it's just deranged thinking. So I like the idea that being is being as in verbing, and it's being everything. And but it's not any different from awareness. It's just a different way of pointing at it. So awareness is being, being is awareness. The whole universe is awareness. The whole universe is being.
Mm-hmm.
And that maybe takes away some of the possibility to deny this, to challenge it in some. And I don't mind things being challenged, but they have to be, they kind of have to, make sense. They have to be clear. If it's causing confusion, then I don't think it's serving its purpose, whatever way they're trying to use it. If it's creating confusion, it's not serving its purpose. Because being and awareness and our whole experience is one of clarity. And so that could be seen as a benchmark for any teaching or message. How clear is it?
Yes, and it's interesting. We encounter in non-dual circles on YouTube, whatever, folks that are quite emphatic about it's just this, and everything kind of goes into a nihilism, a nothingness, summation. And it's always been popular in one form or another, that kind of even existential thinking. when I first encountered it back in my 20s, was more in the nihilistic perspective. And I'm Sartre and others. I'm not going to try to dredge out any memories and knowledge quote in that area, but just I think it's important that it's not the whole understanding. It's a partial understanding, and it's real and right in its limited way, that one is nothing, that there is nothing going on, that however, I can't even almost reconstruct that kind of a mindset anymore. It's one of those passages that we were talking about earlier, where when one moves, may be moved through a series of understandings in which at a given point one feels, I've got it, the whole thing, the whole baby, hands, feet, everything, got it. And it's quite a nice feeling. It's a complete feeling. Seeking falls away. You got it. You know it. You can go play, so to speak. And what in my case, and I think you were saying that about yourself, that there's a moving along into newer, fresher understandings, and widening and broadening, and a kind of a dredging occurs if we allow it. In other words, if we don't get stuck in knowing.
Mm.
And we never get to know. That's one of the things that I guess I'm coming to know, is I'm never going to know. There's never going to be a knower, and there's never going to be anything known. So, give it up, rest in being, and love and joy and what you are, and allow everything to be exactly as it is. Unknown.
Yes, and that doesn't mean that if you see something that you find dissonant, that you don't try to do something about that. Like
Mhm.
if I saw where I work somebody picking on somebody else, then I would step in and ask them to stop.
Mhm.
So it's not like you're just allowing cruel things to happen. We're humans. That's also a beautiful, incredible thing.
Yeah,
And as humans, we're hardwired for compassion, I believe.
there you go. Compassion, love.
Yeah, we're
It's the active
hardwired.
force.
Yeah, and just the natural thing that humans will do is to go and help. And I've seen it over and over again. There's just this innate helpfulness that humans have, and it gets distorted by the me and the conflict thing.
Yeah.
But in itself, it wants to help. And so if there's a way to help a situation and we can help it, please help it. Go ahead and help it.
Mhm.
I'll be cheering you all the way along.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's not a passive, let things be as they are, but internally, awareness is watching, and awareness itself is allowing everything to be. It never intervenes in anything. But it doesn't stop the body mind from trying to intervene also. So we have that opportunity, and maybe even that volition to intervene to help someone out is coming from awareness. It has to be.
Yes, it is.
All
Yeah.
volition comes from awareness. So we find ourselves rushing to help out in a situation. That's the love and compassion of awareness.
Mhm.
And humans are hardwired to respond to that. When awareness prompts that, we respond. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
And you can see that too in the animal world, the supposed animal world. And of course, we belong to the animal world too. The body, the hearts, the liver, the functions, the need for food, the need for shelter, the need for security. All of those things are instinctive and quote animal. And I remember one time I was sitting. This is a memory, but it's germane to what we're saying. Is I was sitting at the living room window, as I tend to do anyway, and I looked out, and there was a mother raccoon carrying one by one. There's a street right in front of the window at the time, a busy highway, kind of busy-ish. And this mother raccoon was taking one at a time her baby raccoons in her mouth and carrying them across and depositing them on the other side of the street. And then going back, watching, listening, always paying attention, totally there. Carried, I think, 4 or 5 baby raccoons over. And then, they followed her off in another direction. You see, love, however you want to call it, it's intrinsic. It's not a thought, and that's why somebody will be walking along, maybe running along a riverbank, and see somebody in trouble, drowning potentially, or an animal in trouble. Either way, it's not like you kind of think about it at all. You just right away off with your shirt and into the water kind of a thing. And of course, sometimes that's a calamity. But there is this passion, if you will, love, and there's no hesitation.
Yeah, and in fact, that non-thinking aspect is a way to verify the non-dual reality. Like as soon as the thinking stops, non-duality is immediately apparent. And it's under those circumstances that people will rush to help when there's not this sense of separation. There's just this move. And later the sense of separation may come back and say, oh, I helped that person. But in the moment, it's just, it's wordless, it's incomprehensible, it's stunning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And when you see it as an onlooker, it affects you. It's just as powerful an effect. It stops thought. I think that's even in our everyday world, people are experiencing the non-dual reality. They're just not noticing it. They haven't been told about it, or it's just not on their radar. But they're fully in it at all times.
Yes,
How could they not be?
yes, yes, yes. And it's not an attention that's, quote, divided the way I was taught from my own understanding for a period of time about dividing attention. There's me passing the salt to a you. That kind of, and I, for years, was in that kind of mode. And attention knows no division. It has no thought in it. If you have thought, you have division, because thought is binary. It labels and it separates by being believed, apparently.
Yeah, this divided attention teaching. I know it's from Uspensky and Gurdjieff, right? The fourth way.
Yes.
And they kind of I'm not sure what happened there, but it seems like they kind of misunderstood what that practice was about, because that practice in itself promotes a me, the very me that they're trying to get rid of, right? Is promoting that me. And
Mhm.
when you have self-remembering, unless you understand that the self that's being remembered is being, the entirety, unless you understand that, you're thinking that this personal self
Yes.
has to be present. And people walk around saying, I'm present, I'm present, I'm this. I need to strengthen presence. I need to be present for longer. They've completely misunderstood. They're misunderstanding what they are. They still think they're a person that's being present. And until that drops, you can be in that place for decades.
Yeah.
And if you're not fortunate enough to find your way out of that maze, you die that way. And then reality, whatever happens on the other side of death, kicks in. And I have theories about that, but I'll go into that some other time. But yeah, it's very, very it's insidious, this type of self-remembering, being present thing. Even Eckhart Tolle kind of alludes to it. He kind of teaches that in a way. He teaches a person that's being present.